Yeah. How's your puppy doing? Oh yeah. I'm just hoping that this little girl works out. I hope this little girl works out. I'm sorry.
You're now live on the internet, so don't say anything you don't want.
Yeah.
Any deep dark family personal secrets, probably don't say out loud right now. Your PIN numbers, keep them on the DL. Passwords. Hi. Sorry. We will get started in 5 minutes. I'm telling your timer is on.
Good. Get back well, yeah, for work is less fun, but still fun.
Well, you guys, wait, this is a great time to silence your cell phones. Remember movie theaters?
Yeah. It's not really. Well, we had conference hotels, all in one hotel, and staying in that hotel. So
But sorry,
no,
I'm just
the den of sin, right? The middle of the desert.
well, we took it in my book, but well, yeah, my sister has one. She says something about Lennox, but it might be worth just driving out there. When I'm saying that, I'm not going to say I've got to wonder who they pulled. Time Out magazine. I mean, come on. That's still.
Testing, just testing. We're mic checking. It's very thrilling. We'll get started shortly. Given remote instructions. This one?
I don't know what else.
And he was like, you know, because I guess he's in school. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't.
I know. Well, anyway, he's the new Jeff.
He was kind of you know, like, he could be dead. I try to be civil,
Right. Well, he's coming up from, I can see that from where I'm sitting. He comes in, he does the job, he doesn't lie.
Watching the live stream and says, all right, guys, welcome. Thank you guys for being here. I'm going to slowly introduce our speaker so the people in the back have a little bit of time to get their beverages. Just going to go real slowly. Thank you guys so much for being here. Most importantly, as I've kicked off every single one of these lectures, thank you for being vaccinated. I've said this at the beginning of every lecture, but we are a history organization, and therefore we have a mountain of proof that vaccines work. So please get vaccinated against all the things: COVID, measles, syphilis. I don't know. Take some penicillin. It's fun. And be glad you don't have to deal with old-timey diseases. Vaccines are cool. Thanks for being here. And for those of you tuning in on the live stream, hello as well. Thank you for being at your house, but still listening to us. It's been a really difficult couple of years, so again, your support just means so much to us as an events organization. To have to stop doing events during the middle of a pandemic really sucked. So it's such a delight to be back here. We're really excited about the technology we've had to learn that allows us to reach more people. So thank you guys again for being here and for supporting our organization. It means a lot to me. My name is Patty. I'm the executive director of Chicago for Chicagoans. I founded this 6 years ago. Stop. But seriously, this means so much to me. What else did I want to add? I'm still stalling for time. Is it super obvious? Oh, I should talk about how we're a nonprofit. So as a quick gauge of the audience here, either leave us a little Facebook comment or raise your hand. Tell us, is this your first time coming to one of our events? Oh, we got some newbies. Hello, newbies. Well, we're very nice here. We're a bunch of Chicagoans, so if you're a jerk, we'll remember you when we see you in Mariano's. Please remember to tip your bartender generously. Tip all bartenders generously, as the service industry has also had a rough couple of years. Give it up for our Room 13 bartenders. And bartenders just in general. They bring me much joy and lots of gin and tonics. So we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We conduct walking tours, scavenger hunts, history lectures, all kinds of different programming. We're a collaborative model. None of our staff are paid. We are all volunteers. And we come together to provide this service to Chicagoans because we believe very strongly in Chicagoans' abilities. You should be able to learn about the history of your city without having to fork over a bunch of dough. Because you're not a tourist. You got to see, is it worth your money? So we hope you consider it to be worth your money and decide to donate to our organization tonight. Again, all your donations are tax deductible. You are our pretty much sole source of funding. Over 95% of our funding comes from event attendees. So we take cash, check, credit card, firstborn babies, Venmo. We take all the things. If you're interested in having a payment processor take the least amount of fees from your donation, donate on DonorBox. You can find the QR codes and links and such on our website and scattered around this room. I think I've successfully stalled for enough time, so without further ado, it is my extreme pleasure to introduce tonight's speaker. She's a native Chicagolandian, not quite Chicago proper. Hinsdale, represent. There's a lot of Hinsdale in the house today. But she's a native to the Chicago region, a passionate historian. She's probably one of our top 2 volunteers for our organization as well. So she's brought a lot of value to our organization. She's learned a ton about Chicago history by being our #1 fan. And she's here today to talk about an incredibly fun and important topic. Chicago has really, really deep ties to France, which you're going to learn all about today. All of those words we all mispronounce. I think the funniest thing I could do now is to mispronounce her name as I introduce her. So welcome, Olivia Sobieraj.
Thank you, Patty. As she accurately said, hi, my name is Olivia Sobieraj. Thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you for tuning in online. I am thrilled to be speaking on this topic today, and big thank you to Chicago for Chicagoans. Like Patty said, I'm a #1 fan, self-appointed. Started coming to this exact speakeasy series 4 years ago, almost to the day, with the intent to meet people and learn some cool stuff. Mission accomplished. So first timers, hope you have a similar feeling. Definitely come back. The reason why I'm speaking about French tonight is because I do speak French. I failed out a Spanish club when I was 5. I was a neighborhood Spanish club, so my parents said you had to take another language, and French had chocolate, so motivated by sweets. But anyway, more importantly, the name Chicago means something. It is the French rendering of the Miami and Illinois word Chicagoan, which is the loving word they gave to the smelly onions that infested the swamp town. Real smelly. So our ties to France start in the 1660s. That's when King Louis XIV decided to reassess his focus on colonization. He hadn't really been a focus for France, and by the time he was really gonna go for it, a lot of the good stuff was taken, to be a little not delicate about it. He really wanted a profitable land with precious metals. Yeah, England, Spain, Portugal, they called dibs on those already. But, lucky for Louis, in the mid-1500s, several voyageurs, also known as French fur traders, came over to what we would call Canada now, Quebec region. That was New France at the time, so he had a starting point, and the fur trade was definitely lucrative. They would, kill the beasts, take their fur and wrap them up, send them over to France, and that's where the finished goods would be made, these high quality furs and accessories, I think the really big hats. Yeah, should have brought a hat. Anyway, so in 1673, Louis Joliet, and he's a French fur trader, also known as voyageur, and Jacques Marquette, a Jesuit priest, started at a southern part of New France. Now, this is Michigan. And before people start coming at me, thank you, John Finley. I am fully trained in this. My folks are from Michigan, so I'm gonna hold this up real high. We got the lower peninsula, we've got the upper peninsula. Sorry, I'm making sure the folks in the back can see. So, and here's Lake Michigan. We're right down here. So right here's an island called Mackinac Island. It is equidistant between the lower and upper peninsulas. It has a close tie with the Fort Michilimackinac. Sorry, I had to practice that one coming into this. It's not how that is spelled at all. So they started at that fort, which was a major center of commerce for the voyageur, as well as a base for the Jesuit priests. So they followed the waterways. We can see French colonization really followed the waterways based on the names. Like go through Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois, a lot of French names. Like just look at the paper and you think, oh, that's a French area, all the way down to Louisiana, to New Orleans. So as I said, Louis Joliet, Jacques Marquette, they took off with the goal to reach Asia. Don't worry, guys, they got to Arkansas. Very exciting. They, in the fashion of many colonists, staked that for New France, and then ignored the people that already lived there, and then turned around and went back up north. So they came up the up the Illinois River, to the Des Plaines River, and then portage to the Chicago River. Let me paint a picture for you here. The word portage, yes, that is a town in Indiana and in Michigan, but it also illustrates a very uncomfortable task. So what these voyageurs would do is unload, and these beaver pelts could be up to 75 pounds, and they would have several that they would carry, in addition to their wooden canoe. So yeah, then they pick that up and carry it over to the next river, hence the portage. Yeah, sounds, so it was during this really fun activity that Louis Joliet thought, ooh, this area, Chicago, smelly onions, but strategically this could be a great center of commerce for us, as part of New France. But the thing is, this portage is really tough. So he got the idea for a canal. This was in the 1670s. It wasn't until the 1830s that the INM, or Illinois-Michigan Canal, would be built, and then completed in 1848. Now, the INM Canal is really cool. It just doesn't really pertain to the topic we're here to discuss today. So if you have questions on it, I highly recommend talking to Patty. Not to be too punny about it, but she really digs canals. I promised Patty one canal joke today. It was so good. Thank you. So, an important note about French colonization, it had a different style than the English colonization. They focused more on the business aspect of it. So New France was highly populated with a lot of French men. Almost the vast majority, if not all, of French fur traders were men. And in order to successfully navigate the business enterprises that were already set up by the many indigenous tribes that inhabited that land and had secure business opportunities in there, in order to secure business opportunities, they had to be related. With the majority of tribes would only trade if you were family. So the French fur traders fell in love. A lot of them married into these tribes. So, of course there's the love match, and then they also got a business partner out of it. So, very modern match up. So that is where we see, the French style coming of colonization. But that said, not all relationships between the French and the indigenous tribes were peaceful. Yeah, we're gonna build the suspense here. Thank you. Not all peaceful. In 1716, the Fox Wars broke out. This was about the wars between the French and their indigenous allies and the Fox tribe. It was fought mainly over resources and trade routes, and really impacted how the French were going to trade through the region. They couldn't really navigate as well due to the ongoing battles and warfare. But during that time, Illinois officially became a French colony, part of the colony of Louisiana. And that happened in 1717. And New Orleans was selected as the capital, not Chicago, because it wasn't, while Louis Joliet had seen some promise there, it hadn't really come to fruition yet, mainly due to the Fox Wars. So they chose New Orleans as the capital for the colony Louisiana. So it was a huge colony. So the Fox Wars came to an end in 1735. The French forces were considered victorious by pushing the Fox tribe up into Wisconsin. And that is when the French fur trade really took off in the Chicagoland area. We can see a lot more commerce jumping up. Unfortunately, as history goes, sometimes wars are back to back. So it wasn't long till 1754 when the French and Indian War broke out. The French and Indian War. For those who maybe missed this class in U.S. history, that was not between the French and the Indians. No. It was the French and their indigenous business partners and familial ties versus the British. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, still mad about that one too. Yeah. Really, they couldn't name anything else. So, but anyway, so it was a war, again, to see who would have control of the region. The British wanted more space for their colonists, so they battled the French and Indigenous, and the French and Indigenous side lost in 1763. And a lot of the French folks left North America, left the Americas, specifically Illinois, which was not a great thing for their Indigenous business partners. The British were not happy with that. Several tribes had sided with the French, and so they were kind of just abandoned. So not great for them, because when it comes to colonization styles, we've talked about the French, right? More business related. The English had a different style. Theirs was based on immigration. They had a large population that needed space, and so their way of combating that problem was turning them into colonists, and there wasn't as much of an incentive to marry into the indigenous tribes and work off an economical relationship that the French had. But ultimately, not too soon after that, there was another war, American Revolution, and ultimately that resulted in the British ceding Illinois to the Americans in 1873 with another Treaty of Paris. So that covers the early entrance of the French into the Chicagoland area. And while the French had lost the political power, the influence does carry on with, drum roll please, Jean-Baptiste DuSable, the father of Chicago. Yeah, we finally got there. Y'all thought I was going to lead with that, didn't you? Yeah. It was like solid middle of the timeline here. So he arrived to our smelly onion of a swamp town, because yes, it was still a smelly onion swamp town, in 1779. So we're technically still British at that time. We're going back in time a little bit. But Jean-Baptiste DuSable was a Haitian immigrant born to a French father and an enslaved African mother. And he had worked as a fur trader in the general Midwest region of what today we would call Michigan, Indiana, and Illinois, and was very successful partially due to his business partner, Catherine, a Potawatomi woman he married. And they were able to move over to the Chicagoland area and start a very successful trading post. And, this is almost 100 years between when Joliet and Marquette were in the region and first saw, from a European standpoint, they're considered the first Europeans to see potential in Chicago. Chicago had a strong indigenous population as well, but they're credited with the first Europeans. So now in the late 1770s, we have Jean-Baptiste DuSable coming here, and him and Catherine established a trading post almost exactly where the Merchandise Mart is today. Yeah, right? Like a modern symbol of commerce and business in the city, and little did we know, hundreds of years ago, same thing. Same location, too. Yeah. Exciting. So their trading post had livestock and, most importantly, finished goods. Those were very important when trading with the indigenous tribes. I know I keep saying indigenous tribes, but I would like to name drop a few. There were hundreds in the region, and each had their own government system and commerce, and this was their land. So it's the Potawatomi, Ojibwe, Illinois, Miami, Winnebago, and Menominee are the major tribes. But again, there are many, many more. And DuSable and his wife, Catherine, were able to have positive business interactions with many of these tribes and exist in peace and build up Chicago as a European standard of trade that it hadn't been seen in the past. To quote Margaret Burroughs, Jean-Baptiste DuSable was the first to give meaning to Carl Sandburg's poem, The City of Big Shoulders. So, but all good things come to an end, and with the Americans taking control of the region, DuSable, he left. So he and his family left in 1800 for Peoria. This is partially due to the changing culture of the region. The U.S. Congress passed the Northwest Ordinance in 1787, which opened up Illinois to settlement. And it also opened up Illinois to American soldiers. He left in 1800. Fort Dearborn came around in 1804. So just with him being a man born from an enslaved woman married to an indigenous woman, he wasn't well positioned to succeed under the English form of colonization that the Americans then continued. There was a cultural relation there. So he went down to Peoria with his wife, lived there for a while, ultimately then moved to Missouri where he passed away. John Kinsey bought his trading post. So we know John Kinsey because he has a bridge named after him. And Fort Dearborn was erected in 1804. So at this point, we know the major players. We've heard these names. So, Louis Joliet, who first saw the strategic opportunity in Chicago, or first European. He is a city named after him, about 30 miles southwest of Chicago. We pronounce it Joliet. I know I have a Midwest accent sometimes. That's the seat of Will County, or if you watch the Blues Brothers, that's where Jake and Elwood broke out of. And then Jacques Marquette, he has a whole university for him up in Wisconsin. And Wisconsin. Sorry. And a town along the Illinois River just west of Starved Rock Park. Marquette and Marquette sound really similar to me. So then in 2021, finally, Jean-Baptiste Point DuSable, father of Chicago. You got a road named after him. It's a big one too. Gotta practice this one. Jean-Baptiste Point DuSable, Lakeshore Drive. It's a long name, but it's worth it. He truly gave so much to this city, put us on the map in terms of a European style of trading and commerce. So that said, not all French named places are named after people. So example, there is a town south of here, pronounced Bourbonnais. I had that confirmed by a local. Yeah. It was named by and founded by French Canadians. They were fleeing economic pressures at home in the late 19th century. I would pronounce that Bourbonnais, but say it like that, people won't understand. Yeah, so Bourbonnais. And then I grew up next to LaGrange, Illinois. I really thought this was named after like some French thing, because LaGrange is a French word. No, it's named after a town in Tennessee. Yeah, that was a shocker. So accents do change over time. We've talked about my Midwest accent. And we were ultimately colonized by the English, which is why we're speaking English today. But you don't see me speaking the Queen's English. Yeah, a little bit of a change there. Similar with French. So if you were to go to Quebec and hear someone speak French, it's very nasally. It's very similar to a Midwest accent. It's really up here. Whereas if you were to go to France, there are a plethora of accents in France, but the Parisian accent is much more in the throat, so a little bit more different. So, sure, look at us on paper. We look pretty French, but you talk to a local and it's Des Plaines,
Yep.
Joliet, and Marquette, and Bourbonnais. And I don't know how people are pronouncing this without the accent, but Jean-Baptiste Point DuSable. I've heard it Point or Point, so choose your adventure. This brings us into part 2. So we also have a nickname, City of Big Shoulders, Windy City, but also Paris on the Prairie. Thanks, Jonathan. So this is, we could boil this down to 2 reasons. One of them being Daniel Burnham's 1909 Plan of Chicago. Also, Patty's a fan, also known as the Burnham Plan. Daniel Burnham might sound familiar to you. He was the lead designer and architect for the 1893 Columbian Exposition. He worked with a team of architects. No brag, but like my 2nd, 3rd, or 5th cousin was one of them. So I was told. So he did such a great job with that. So many people, hundreds of thousands of people came to Chicago for the Columbian Exposition, for the World's Fair, which led to an influx in immigration to the city as well. So with a booming population, several business leaders saw the need to make a mindful plan for Chicago's growth. And that led them to asking Daniel Burnham to lead that effort, which then turned into the 1909 Plan of Chicago. This is also how we got the famous quote, "Make no little plans. They have no magic to stir men's blood, and probably will not themselves be realized. Make big plans, aim high in hope and work, in remembering that a noble logical diagram, once recorded, will never die, but long after we are gone, will be a living thing, asserting itself with ever-growing insistency." So quick pause right here. For those who are here in person, if you fill out your punch card, you get something cool like this. Yeah, this is what I got. Prized possession. All right, plug over. Back to Daniel Burnham. So that last part where he talks about, make a great plan and it'll never die, that directly applies to him. Because he wrote this in his 1909 plan. He was dead by 1912. I'm sorry, he had passed. So we're still working on Burnham's plan. That said, we haven't reached it 100%. I wouldn't give us an A+, but if we go through the 6 points one by one, we're getting pretty close. So first one, improvement of the lakefront. Man, who has biked the lakeshore path? Yes, thank you, Mr. Burnham, appreciate that. Also the river walk, for those who, yes, if you're in the office job but you want to go take a little lunch in the sunshine, that river walk is really nice. Second, creation of a system of highways outside the city. I am thankful for the Eisenhower every time I go visit Mom and Dad. I appreciate that. Yeah, taking Ogden Avenue the whole way, I've done it. It takes forever. All right, improvement of the railway terminals and development of a complete traction system for both freight and passengers. Okay, so this one's interesting because we have, the L system, and that does circle, downtown, comes out in a little star pattern. We'll talk about that in a sec. But we don't really have a great, longer rail system. But when he wrote this in 1909, did he know we would have Midway and O'Hare? I don't think so. So bonus points for that one. Next is an outer system of parks and parkway circuits. That's technically part 2 of why we're Paris on the Prairie, so we'll get to that. Just no spoiler alert, we have really good parks. Systematic arrangement of the streets and avenues within the city in order to facilitate the movement to and from the business district. I understand, this might be not everyone's experience, but I can get to and from work in Lincoln Park in 20 minutes. So yeah, I'm thankful for LaSalle Drive. Let's see. Finally, development of centers of intellectual life and civic administration, so related as to give coherence and unity to the city. He had a different idea for this than what we actually have. That said, we're doing pretty well. We have a great museum campus that is wonderful. A lot of it is left over from the Columbian Exposition. Think Museum of Science and Industry. And also, the Loop is our business district. We have, that's pretty contained. And we're also a system of neighborhoods, and each neighborhood has its own unique features that gives back to the city and really builds us up to create this really beautiful metropolis. So this all vaguely ties to us being Paris on the Prairie. Essentially, the idea is that we are a booming, beautiful metropolis, great architecture, within a series of beautiful parks, and that's our Prairie. So as far as our park system, that we have 570 parks by wonderful designers such as Frank Law Olmsted, Jens Jensen, Alfred Caldwell, think the Lincoln Park Lily Ponds. We talked about Daniel Burnham, and more recently Frank Gehry. So think Millennium Park, that wonderful bandstand. Yeah, thank you, Frank. So as far as, if you think into your mind what your favorite park is, if like me, you think Lincoln Park, you're not wrong. The zoo is great. Love Lincoln Park. That said, when Daniel Burnham was making this plan and the Chicago park system was taking off, the true investment in the city was within the south and west sides. And we can see that in the park system. And originally these parks were all going to be connected with boulevards as well. And we can see that a bit with Logan Boulevard, but this is part of the plan that didn't totally happen in the way that Burnham envisioned. But those connections, as well as the way the L circles the loop and spreads out, is similar to the the star pattern of Paris, where the Arc de Triomphe is at the middle, and the streets come out in a star. So that influenced Burnham with the L system, as well as how our parks and boulevards are organized. So this spring, if you head on down to Jackson Park, you can check out the cherry blossoms in front of the Museum of Science and Industry. Also the Japanese gardens, beautiful, left over from the Columbian Exposition. Or in the summer, you can head on down to McKinley Park and see those lagoons. You won't look at Lincoln Park the same way again. I'm telling you, it's different. So, as far as how we are still tied to France today, in 1996, we became an official sister city of Paris. Yeah, there are lots of sister cities, but we're still special because in 2003, the Parisian Transit Authority, along with the Union League Club of Chicago, one of the oldest city clubs in Chicago, they worked together to erect the Van Buren Street Metro Station. So this is it is an identical replica of the Hector-Guimard subway stations in Paris. These are from the early 1900s, and they're these beautifully ornate, almost kind of creepy subway station openings. No, they look really cool. You can look them up on your phone, or you can walk on down to the Van Buren Street station. And they weren't super well received by Parisians in the early 1900s. That said, they're now landmarked. They love them. And now they use the same molds to create similar ones for their sister cities. Yeah, so also if you do have a friend who's a member of the Union League Club, they have a Monet. They technically sold it, but it's still there. I checked. And it's really cool to see. But if you want to see even more Monets and more French art, head over to the Art Institute. Yes. We have a lot of alums here from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, which is why we have the Art Institute. So thank you to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and to the many, many Chicagoans in the late 1800s who, well, this was like the upper class Chicagoans. It was very cool to summer in Paris. So just like go there for vacation, and they brought back a ton of art. So if you want to see some great French works, head on over to the Art Institute. And then if you're wondering how many French people are in Chicago, good question. If anyone is really good at finding this on census records, let me know. I was able to find that in 2016, we had just over 5,000 French expats in Chicago, which is only about 4% of French expats in the US. I don't know why, but they really gravitated to New York. Whatever, it's fine. But also LA and Texas, so whatever. I like the warmth too. So even with just a handful of French and Francophone folks in Chicago, the influence from the Voyageurs to Jean-Baptiste Point-DuSable exists today in our city and in our naming structure. So at this point, thank you for coming out on this cold evening. Yeah, if you have any questions, preferably in English, but if they're in French, I'll do my best. Yes?
When you said that the traders preferred finished goods, what would be an example of a finished good versus?
Yeah, so great question. The question was, when it came to finished goods, what would some of those be? Mixed reviews on how this one worked out, but one of them was alcohol, which wasn't super great coming into a population that didn't have alcohol for the entirety of its existence. So, but also things like weapons, fine goods, and a lot of jewelry was traded. So if you go to the Chicago History Museum, which shout out to the Chicago History Museum, they're my main source for this evening. They have examples of these, of the jewelry at least, that would have gone through the DuSable trading post.
Other questions? Don't be shy.
I was just wondering, you talked about Paris, and we all think of the Eiffel Tower, and then Chicago with the Ferris wheel, another really similar materials. Are there any connections?
Great question. So the question is, when we think of Paris, we think of the Eiffel Tower, and when we think of Chicago, a lot of folks will think of the Ferris wheel. similar materials. And yes, there is a distinct tie between that. Daniel Burnham was very impressed with the Eiffel Tower, and that was created just a few years before our Columbian Exposition. So he worked with a man with the last name of Ferris, a structural engineer, to create something that would be as eye-catching, but not seem like a total copycat situation. So that's when they constructed the Ferris wheel. And if you look at old pictures of the fair, it is by far the largest, the tallest structure. Each car was the size of a train car, and it was absolutely fantastic. No one had seen anything like that before, so there are very similar feelings or reactions in Chicago to the Ferris wheel as to the Eiffel Tower. Patty?
I have a question. Do you know much about René Robert Cavalier, Sieur de La Salle?
Oh, oui. So the question is, do I know much about, I'm going to shorten his name to Robert de La Salle, and yes, thank you, good question. So Robert de La Salle is the reason we have La Salle Street. That said, he didn't influence Chicago in the same way that Louis Joliet or Jacques Marquette did, in that he was an influential voyageur. He started up in Canada, he went all the way down to New Orleans and staked a claim to that area for the colony of Louisiana, similar to the way Joliet and Marquette did as well when they reached Arkansas. And something that is really impressive about Robert de La Salle is he had a lot of drama in his life. So he had to constantly go between New France and France. And that was in the mid to late 1600s. From what I've read about crossing the Atlantic in the mid to late 1600s, that doing it once sounds terrible. He did it at least 4 or 5 times.
Typically 30 to 49 day voyage.
Oh my gosh, a 30 to 49 day voyage. That sounds terrible. So he did that many times, and he did ultimately pass due to a mutiny from his very mad crew down in Texas. He was supposed to land in New Orleans. I'd be mad too. So, but he just didn't impact Chicago in the same way. He's much more influential in the fort at Starved Rock. So that's why we have a street named after him, but he didn't necessarily make the top list for this evening. Sorry, Robert.
Other questions?
Yes, Elsa?
With like French immigrants, were there any neighborhoods that they like particularly lived in? I know that there's like a French school in Ravenswood. I didn't know if there was a connection.
Yeah, great question. So it's
Again?
yeah. So thank you, John. The question is, where are the French folks in Chicago? Do they gravitate to any neighborhoods? And yes, there are 2 main neighborhoods that we do see a larger French population. The first being Lincoln Park. This is just a personal story, but I constantly hear people speaking French in my neighborhood. And there was a school there at one time. That said, we do see a larger population in Ravenswood that accompanies the Lycée Français up in Ravenswood as well, which is a private school from maternelle or preschool, age 3, up to through high school. They have an IB program, or you can get the similar certification that they have in France called the BAC. Any more? Do we still have time for questions, Patty? Sweet. Maggie?
What about DePaul University? Is that French at all?
Ooh, good question. What are the French ties to DePaul University? So DePaul is named after St. Francis de Paul. He was a French saint that did not travel to Chicago. So no, that's more of like a saint connection than a French people connection. Yeah. Steph?
What influence did Chicago have over the Louisiana Purchase?
Oh, wow, good. So, yeah, so Steph wants to know what influence Chicago had with the Louisiana Purchase. So the Louisiana Purchase was everything west of the Mississippi. So Chicago, before the Purchase, was considered the westmost, Middle West port. It was a major center of commerce, so essentially gave Chicago even more influence over the region, because you couldn't just go east now, you could go west as well. So, Risa?
Can you please pronounce the street G-O-E?
Can I please pronounce the street G-O-E-T-H-E? Yes, because my sister speaks German. Goethe. And thank you to my mom for making me practice that.
What are some of your favorite French mispronunciations you hear locally?
Oh, favorite French mispronunciations? I don't want to be rude.
No.
But Des Plaines kills me every single time. Oh. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just really enjoyed about it. Yeah, Des Plaines. Because you wouldn't pronounce the S in either word. Okay, I don't see any more questions. So thank you again for coming out this evening. It's wonderful to have you all here. And thanks for everyone who signed on Facebook.
We're not going to rush you out or anything. Please feel free to enjoy your beverage. Maybe meet somebody new tonight. You know, when was the last time you were out of your house? So you already have something in common. You love Chicago history, so please, this is a good way to make friends. It's a way I've made a lot of friends. And you too can be someone like Olivia who just comes to enough of these that you say, hey, I want to give one of these. Truly, we are a collaborative organization, so if there's a weird topic you know a lot about, send us an email. We would love to invite you to as well go through our training process, which is free, and give lectures for us, which are paid. So it's a fun opportunity. We encourage you guys to join us. Please throw a donation our way on your way out if you can. If not, leave us a nice review on the internet, because that matters a lot too. Thank you guys again for being here, and we'll see you back here next week. Next week we have an exceptional talk coming up on the history of public housing, and why, you know, we all have these images in our brain of the giant public housing complexes like Cabrini Green, but they're no longer there. So where did the public housing go, and where did the people go? It's a fascinating chapter in our Chicago history. Spoiler alert, you will want to be drunk for this one. But it's a really important piece of Chicago history, so please sign up. Tickets are available. We're about halfway sold out. And then in 2 weeks, we'll be back here with lecturer Adam Seltzer talking about the 1920s in Bohemia. So lots more fun events coming up. Grab one of the flyers on your way out as well that has all the dates for our lecture series, or check our website. Thank you guys so much.
Olivia!